Where to start? All right, we're on. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to office hours for the Semantic Kernel. Public office hours, disclaimer, because this is a public forum. So if you're going to be sharing anything company related, well, obviously
Don't.
Don't or obfuscate that. So, but yes, we have a packed agenda, a lot of questions coming in. As always, if you want to join in the conversation live, right, feel free to just add in chat. Feel free to also just put your questions in chat too. If we have time, we'll get to them, or people on the Semantic Kernel team can respond to them directly. In terms of some announcements or some things to call out, we have some new intro videos that are available for you to see. One of the things that is soon to be merged into the repo is more help for telemetry and allowing you to just see more transparently what's going on behind the scenes, do your logging and all that stuff with the semantic kernel. So that's been a very hotly asked for feature from the community. So heard you loud and clear. So we have some work there. We also actually announced our roadmap for the rest of fall or leading up to a fall 2023 release. So you can see either the original video or the reaction that Shannon and myself that we did for this. So one key thing to call out is that we are going to be, the 3 Ps are the things that we're going to be focusing on: plugins, planners, and personas. So exactly what those mean, you can see the video to learn more. One more thing to call out is, we have some new dev blogs. So we had an interview, or John Maeda had an interview with the CEO of Chroma. Chroma is one of the vector databases that work with semantic kernel. So definitely check that one out. And because we are public, open source, we have our backlog available on GitHub. Actually, I'll just show you where you can see that. So you go to projects, and then you can see the different boards. So if I just click on semantic kernel, you will see what we are working on at any given time, what's on our current sprint, what's on our backlog. And you can obviously click into any of these issues and comment to bump up the attention or priority for these things. But yes, it's a way for us to share with you what's going on. So yeah, with that, again, add in questions in the chat, but we will go ahead with our programming. All right, so we have David here. And so David sent in this question, but I think he has a lot more that he could elaborate on. So he asked about support for open source models, given the impact of OpenAI model deprecation policy, which causes a myriad of dependency management issues post-integration. So clicking on this link, oops. So if for those who don't know, OpenAI recently announced that they are making GPT-4 generally available, which is a huge ask or relief for a lot of the people who want to make use of this powerful model. We definitely recommend, if you're making use of planners and things like that, to use GPT-4 if you can. So the fact that it's available is great. But with it, they also, in the announcement, they made this call out that they're moving away from text completions to chat completions. So this for sure impacts us because we have the text completion endpoint that primarily is used to service models like Text DaVinci 003. But I believe even right now, you can no longer even deploy those text completion models on Azure. So it just shows that it's transitioning more towards chat completions. We have an open issue to update all the samples and notebooks to that. But yeah, disclaimer that this is what OpenAI is going towards. Now, obviously, semantic kernel is not just going to be OpenAI centric. At least that's not what we want to be. We want to support all different models. Anthropic just came out with their Claude 2 model.
It's Claude 2
recently. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's we want to be able to support this. We want you to be able to play around with it in your application and choose a model that's right for you. So whether that fits into the chat completion, text completion API, we'll figure that out and hopefully, expose the right API for you to use. So stay tuned for that. But David, do you want to talk any or more detail about what are the things that are top of your mind here?
I mean, you nailed it, right? And I'm happy to sit and answer questions until the 1:30 hard stop that I have. But ultimately, like, this is not just chat versus text completion, right? Or like even the embedding models, because I think from memory, right, within that list of deprecations, if I'm using embeddings from OpenAI in order to train my models, right, the inability of me to reproduce those later for the sake of auditability, right? Like assuming, God forbid, that like my disaster recovery scenario failed, right? Knowing that I no longer have access to the embedding model to be able to generate and like execute the same code, ultimately means it's a dependency management issue. So it's I guess their prerogative, right? Microsoft owns what, 49%, not 51% of OpenAI. But I am hoping that they will come up with a more enterprise-friendly solution, because in the interim, I created a weird Nicktoons themed reverse proxy that I've already bugged Alex about, that will let you do what you need to do, but is both hacky and I think not like in the spirit of making it easy for persons managing and continuing to develop like legacy applications to integrate with models in order to call functions, especially as oh no, so that's StoopKid. Yeah. The SpongeBob one is the reverse proxy. StoopKid is basically a windowing function of the last 5 minutes, right? You're doing cosine similarity against, and then it cascades into, I think it's Rogue L, right? Or Rouge L as a metric for like basically divergence, meaning that if there's monotonicity in one way within your window, and then you've got divergence from like the training data set of your language model, then odds are you're experiencing either poor generalization of your model or an attack. There's also the SpongeBob one is the reverse proxy. It's literally just Terraform and some variables. You're giving you too much credit. But the SpongeBob one is the reverse proxy. And there's also something in there that is designed to look at like prompt injection. Most of these are proofs of concept, but they have some error handling, even if they need better logging. The point is not to pitch my stuff, right? But to talk about kind of what needs I anticipate within the enterprise, right? So specifically, I think that making sure that Semantic Kernel can support the use of like customized endpoints, especially as, like if I wanted to do my own mixture of experts, right? My own 8 models in a trench coat and come up with my own GPT-4, right? It would probably also be really good at like planning and executing. And so I just think it's important that given the ambiguity from OpenAI regarding the long-term availability of their models, because they want to protect their IP, right? That Semantic Kernel has a plan so that, I can give it a fair evaluation as a framework against, honestly, the only alternative that I can think of to y'all is like Stanford's DSP, right? And you guys have, from what I can tell, both a better, more open backlog and are like an actual enterprise tool versus a cool academic idea. So happy to answer any questions, but I saw a couple of head nods and assume I'm not the only one asking this question. So.
Yeah, does anyone have any experiences? I see a question actually from Nico in the chat saying, yeah, is this a breaking change? And are they accounting for the fact that people might have to migrate existing apps? I mean,
Nope.
yeah, this is not, at least from the OpenAI side, and as Azure effectively will onboard the OpenAI models when they are available. Usually there's like a couple week lag, but yeah, because at least as long as OpenAI is one of the model providers, from the Microsoft side, we don't really have control over that. So yes, it will introduce breaking changes. So the question is, how do you stay nimble in your application development to you know,
You
incorporate them
create
in.
a hacky reverse proxy using Terraform, and then make it a weird meme, right, Alex? That's the takeaway. So
That's right.
cool.
So give David's repo a look. I'll drop it in the chat.
Or don't, and just go like, because you were being kind earlier, Alex, when I annoyed John, right? Both through like on social media. I'm saying that for whatever reason, this did not get enough attention in my view. And I don't know if that's because no one wants to like a post where like I'm picking a fight with OpenAI, politely, but still being kind of direct about the fact that this is a breaking change that means that their long-term enterprise adoption is going to suffer. But I'm not God. I don't work at OpenAI, right? And so within my span of control, I'm going to try to make sure that we have the tools we need for enterprise adoption of large language models, so that folks can do cool stuff. To wit, I'm hoping Semantic Kernel, that something that solves for this gets into the backlog. So, and happy to open that issue. I haven't yet. I have two toddlers. I'm sorry. So they're cute, but 2 and 4. So
Cody is saying that he likes picking fights.
my whole deal is like polite pedantic, right? So yeah, thanks y'all, and thanks
Cool.
Alex.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we have this next question, and some of these questions I did a brief preview of. I might not be the best to answer because a lot of them are C#.NET related. I'm definitely more of a Python person myself, but I will try. And we have, I think, some people from the Semantic Kernel team to help. But so Ryan asks, I've been trying to get into this over the past few days, coming from the outside as a daytime programmer. I know it may be well known how to do this, where to find resources, but I got stuck trying to get an application running where the startup CS, program CS, skills, configs, etc. are all configured to use .NET config, and building the kernel with those environment app setting files. I figured out now how to get things running, but I feel it's duct taped together. I know there are many separate examples online for small programs that showcase a minimal need to get an implementation working. But what I'd like to see is a sample project that adheres to some best practices on how to set everything up. I feel like looking back, having that to reference would have set the bar lower. So some comments here from Harleen and others is, yeah, so that go-to sample that we talk about is the Copilot chat sample. So for those who don't know, Copilot chat is under samples, apps, Copilot chat. It is where most of our the apps and services side of the semantic kernel team, they are spending the bulk of their time just working on this sample. So you can see a full end-to-end application. I actually filmed a walkthrough with Teresa for this not too long ago. But yeah, that's where you can see the structure, the decisions, the designs, and yeah, if there are questions with regards to like why this, why that, ask that on Discord or on GitHub. We've had several questions like that come in, and we are very happy to ask about that or answer that. Abby also says, check out the VS Code extension. So there are small selection startup projects that have some guidance on best practices. So again, for those who don't know, in VS Code, do I have this up? And a kernel VS Code extension. Hope it's the first link. Or it's at least the dev blog. Okay, yes. So this looks right. So inside VS Code, we have our own extensions, semantic kernel tools that you can use. And with that, you can actually like test out your prompts even and see them automatically render and get the result back, as well as things like tokens and time to execute. At the same time, with that, you can get like a very quick hello world type sample up and running. If I believe if it's only C# examples right now, we will soon have Python and Java's coming soon to the table as well. So yeah, definitely check that out as a way to see more instances and examples.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say that is a great place to start. It's you can find the VS Code extension through the marketplace. It's got everything that's the latest. The Copilot chat is where we're having everybody start. Those are the two tools that I'm using to teach my kids AI over the summer. So there should be, and they're growing. That library is getting bigger. We're adjusting it on feedback. So if you're not finding a piece that you want in there, let us know. We're happy to take that feedback.
Shane, would you mind repeating yourself? Just as the dad of two kids, what was the tool?
Sorry. So we started with VS extension because it's really easy to set that IDE up and get the 11-year-old moving on it, and then using Copilot chat, going in and changing the UI, showing him where the prompt is actually at, so that he can start to learn how to adjust the prompts and rewrite that. And it's designed to just make it all very visible, which is a great place to start.
I love that, and you get them early, with all the kind of weird VS Code extensions they're going to want when they're an adult. So
yep, if he knows how to use this, he's got it locked down. So yeah.
Very good.
Hey, Alex, before you move on, and just because I noticed a question in the chat from Sebastian that may have been in jest, but is also kind of a question that I have, right? Azure endpoints for GPT-4 were I think on a wait list or something, or a beta test. I haven't looked in a minute, but do you guys have news on general availability of private Azure endpoints for GPT-4? Again, now that I'm complaining about how their model deprecation strategy makes me mad, but I am curious. So
yeah, I do not have that off the top of my mind.
Cool. Then I will Google that. So thank you, Alex.
Yeah, Google or Bing it,
or my bad.
But I'll also if I can find, I'll put it in Discord as well.
Awesome. Thanks, dude.
All right. So next question. So Manny asks, I'm from the IRIS chatbot team in the DPS organization. We are currently working on enabling Copilot scenarios with Semantic Kernel. We had questions about how to use a planner to break down complex user asks into multiple semantic functions. Currently, sequential planner doesn't allow us to remove any steps after a planner has been created. We were wondering if there are any comments / instructions on how we can better ground the planner for our business scenarios. So sequential planner does not allow us to remove any steps. So this is where, if anyone on the team, Semantic Kernel team, wants to hop in to answer this, I would have said, if this was like a month ago, when the planner was looked different, I would have said something along the lines of, the planner can be editable, like it's a human readable object, and you could change it because it's effectively just a list of steps or functions or skills that are being called, and you can modify it as you see fit. I don't know exactly if that's still the case today. So I don't know. I see Tao or Chris. Anyone have any? Chris, you're muted if you're saying something. Gonna say something.
I was going to defer to Tao if he had something to say, but no, that's right. In terms of
okay, so one answer that Abby provided is, while not the most elegant solution, you can serialize that plan to JSON, edit the JSON, and then load in the edited plan. And then other ways to ground the planner are the use of embeddings, skill inclusion, must include, and skill exclusion.
Well, we just released the iterative planner too, so we're definitely that might be a place to or possible there.
There you go. We also talked about grounding, so that sounds like a good place to spend the rest of the hour. A kid, but Abby's got a great point there on the reason, Alex, you're talking about using GPT-4 to do your planning and execution, right? Is that it's good and better at that, and that agents with tools are good at stuff, but you need to ground what they're doing, and grounding is more than vector matching, which I think I put in the chat. Is that? Yeah, I see Chris nodding again. I'm gonna put a cool. I'm gonna plug my buddy's Substack, which feels like a super not cool thing to do, but he's actually great. and it's all about like how an LEU requires both lexical and semantic search. So I don't have an answer to Abby's question. I'm just saying, I like her hacky solution. So
Yeah, if I can try to find it, there are examples where you can exclude skills explicitly. I don't know if it's the best way to search this. So for certain planners, I don't know if sequential planner has this. Is where I get confused. But okay, let's just call it stepwise planner. There's a way for you to be like exclude functions, include functions. So I think we got this question actually last week or a week before. But yes, like if you want to explicitly for your kernel instance that your plan will be running with to only use a set number of skills or skills that you know that you want to use, you can do that. You can control that. And yeah, I would say our pattern is probably more explicit than just, what do you want to call it? Like automatic of which functions, which plugins, which skills you want to use. So you do have to be a bit more explicit in saying which ones. But yes, good question, Manny. If you want to follow up more on GitHub or Discord, let's do that. All right. Okay, so Sebastian actually asked a few different questions. So Sebastian, if you're here, yes, oh yes, you are here. Definitely, fill in the gaps of whatever. Again, I'm not .NET, so I will try. So Sebastian asks, integration with the .NET DI. I actually don't know what DI stands for. Well,
Dependency injection.
Dependency injection. Okay. Will Semantic Kernel be able to be registered with the DI to easily use it in web app backends, i.e. registers several named kernels with different configurations like named HTTP clients today? If that's not currently planned, would the SK team be interested in PR for such integration? Chris or anybody?
That's a great question, actually. I was looking to see if Sean or somebody from his team was online that could comment directly.
I don't see Sean online.
I mean, most dependency injection frameworks allow you to either register or instantiate inside the container any services. So I'm a little curious on the specifics around like exactly the intent of how to integrate, what type of injection with kernel is like. Is it like a service that receives a kernel as a dependency, or I mean, would kind of be my default assumption.
If I can just unmute. So yes, that would be the question. Like we have an API backend for our web application, and we want to provide several integrations with AI in the application. May it be semantic search, may it be some agents triggering stuff. So we would have several kernels configured, but we can just register the iKernel because we have several of them with different configurations.
Yep.
And then you get the correct one for that chain, and we are in the web API. So everything from the client is a web request. So we need to fetch the correct kernel with the correct configuration. And also, I think that's maybe a question I put in on the form, and which can come up later, with the correct memory for the current user, because we serve multiple users from our scale out API and stuff like that. So currently it's hard to integrate that in a web API.
Yeah, that puts a lot of meat on the bone. Thanks for that. So I mean, So, I mean, because dependency injection a lot of times is keyed off the type, right? Like the interface or type or whatever. A lot of times, if you're managing multiple instances of the same type, that's kind of a little bit more of an advanced scenario. I know like an autofac and, most of the DI frameworks have some way of supporting it, but it's not usually the common thing that's demonstrated. It usually involves including some type of key or service ID or something like that. And that would be, if you were like, to your point, the dependency injection was the kernel itself with different configurations. I know for really complex scenarios, something I might explore that's commonly recommended in these situations is your dependency is some type of provider class, something that's kind of a service that lives above the kernel that can kind of reason over the parameters that you're and can then I mean you can almost think of it as a kernel provider in the simplest sense, and then that becomes the thing that's injected, and then the consuming services interact with that, and it gives you kind of a more complex surface area to kind of fulfill that contract, perhaps.
Okay, so there's currently no plan to provide that as the out-of-the-box API. Would there be interest to have that as some kind of out-of-the-box API, and you would be interested in PRs providing that? Or would I have a lot of work and then get a PR in the project and you say, okay, though, no, that's out of scope, and yes, but no?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have similar curiosity for the rest of the team in terms of, I think it's a great suggestion.
Yeah, for this, let's definitely talk about this on GitHub. Don't file the PR first, right? Let's just talk as an issue, and then we will talk, debate, and see if it makes sense to put it into the core kernel. Go ahead, Chris.
One idea just to throw out there, not to dirty the water too much, but because the Copilot chat has web API and the web front end, this pattern could be explored also there. It could be one vehicle.
Yeah, one thing I know that we are entertaining is this idea of sort of like extensions to the kernel can be, let's say you build something, you put in your own repo, maybe you publish a NuGet package or something, and you can, just have it be a companion thing alongside the kernel, and we can publicize that, maybe put it in some gallery or somewhere, and while it may not be exactly in the core SK repo itself, it will for sure be discoverable and used as people see fit. So,
yeah, I like that.
But yeah, let's talk on the GitHub issues for this. So Sebastian also has another question, which is, so is it planned to enable local execution of smaller embedding models? In LangChain, we can use local embedding models to have fast and cheap local vectorization of documents and queries. It would be a great use case to query a vector DB that was indexed with LangChain and a local embeddings model. But for that, semantic kernel C# would need to use the same embeddings model to vectorize a query. So yes, that is a very important point that, embeddings is not just a one-way thing. You have to also use the same embedding model to take in whatever query so that you can actually adequately compare and do the vector similarity. So Abby points out that, yes, you can do this in the Python version of the semantic kernel. And the reason why is because we just can make use of the Hugging Face, and the models that are able to be run locally there. In .NET, it's, as you can imagine, we don't have, but there isn't as much support today for these type of things. So this probably goes beyond the semantic kernel scope, but things like Abby calls out Torch Sharp, Onyx Runtime, some of these other, what do you want to call it, like intermediate translation sort of services or libraries. We that's on our radar. We have it somewhere on our backlog. For .NET specifically, it's a little challenging. So what I would suggest is if you can have some sort of mix where you could maybe host a Python like server and make the calls against that, make use of the Python version of semantic kernel, maybe even, and then just interface through HTTP requests. I think that would be sensible. But yes, longer term, it would be great to have for each of the primary languages, whether it be .NET, Java, to have some sort of integrated experience. All right, saw thumbs up. Okay, so next question we have from Nico. So Nico asks, if you have a skill that requires input, for example, this add skill, sequential planner create plan async seems to succeed when it doesn't have arguments to pass. Should there be code to check if context has number 2 before calling invoke async to make sure they were specified? Give some examples here. I would like to add numbers. So both cases really need a Q&A prompt to get the 2 numbers. Is there a planner that realizes the input is not specified and then performs a Q&A to get them? Or do you have to integrate with cognitive service Q&A after checking the context? That's a very good question. I think this shows the dynamic nature of some of the scenarios that you all are encountering or building against. So for planner, I would say that to be able to have it recognize that, oh, the ask that the planner is receiving doesn't have enough info is likely going to be a skill you have to write, right? But probably at the very top of the planner, it executes some sort of, I don't know, check relevant skills, or check relevant input thing. And then you would have to probably, for now, again, my memory is a little fuzzy on what's there or what's currently there, but I believe you would still have to capture that input yourself and then pass it back in, put it inside like the context of the kernel so that it can be picked up downstream. And yeah, because we make use of this context, which more or less is, think of it like a dictionary. Then we pass it around the kernel. The planner has access to it, and yeah, that's how it would select or choose the appropriate values to include. I don't know if anyone else on the team has some thoughts here, or honestly anyone on the call, if you encountered these type of scenarios, what you've done so far to handle it. Okay, if not, let's definitely continue this discussion over Discord and GitHub, because I think it's really good, really important. All right, next from Nico is code skills seem to be only able to return primitive types, string, int, double, or task primitive. Complex structures seem to require returning string and serializing them to strings. Is there a reason not to support lists, iCollection? Those can be serialized later to JSON easily. Chris or anybody, Tao, anyone?
I actually have the same question on my backlog.
Yeah,
I mean, ostensibly any entity class, even not just collection classes, anything that can be serialized to JSON. I mean, I could guess that maybe it was just kind of a convenient starting point. I'd be curious, Devis's perspective, but I doubt there'd be, I mean, I think the need to evolve here is clear. There's opportunity.
Yeah, so this is good feedback for us. because I think working with different types is important. I think today, yes, very much like string centric still. So yes, we will look at this some more, put on our backlog, and discuss this. How to support. A good question. I see Cody add some additional thing. Cody, if you want to hop off mute and just quickly comment.
Yeah. I just pull in whatever format that I want to use. Like say it's a list of strings, and it's separated by commas or something like that. CVS. You just make a struct, and then in the struct it has the logic to convert to the object that you want. That's the workaround I use right now.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
I can.
Okay.
I think for semantic functions, you can only return a string. But for native functions, you can do whatever logic inside your function to serialize your output to a string, a primitive type. Right? So I guess that's the reason why we don't natively support list of string, or because you can implement those logic inside your native function. That's just my guess, but I think that this would be the best person to answer this.
Yeah, Nico, I think before, like always, before doing the work for the PR, let's discuss this on an issue, and then see if we have the green light to be like, this is some core functionality we should add to the kernel. But yes, thanks for the suggestions. All right, we have a question from YouTube actually. So Dave Fellows asks, and this is with regards to the stepwise planner, which is a different video that was that's available for you to all watch. So Dave asks, are each of the thoughts that are being produced by the planner separate calls to the LLM? If so, isn't this adding a lot of latency to producing the final result? The examples taken are taking quite a long time to complete, so I'm wondering how suitable this approach is for interactive copilots. Also, I'm not sure I followed the explanation of why the 1500 millisecond of delay was required to config mid-iteration time. So, Lee's not here to explain. He's the architect for all things planner. And I interviewed him in this video. So I will at least say that this planner in particular, the stepwise planner, it's more or less closer to this idea of like an agent, where again you give it an ask and it will run, but it will run kind of autonomously to try to solve the problem. Again, using the functions you provide, it's not going to make up new functions, and it will keep going even if it encounters like an error, right, or an exception. It will try to correct itself and take steps to to accomplish the task. And as a result, right, it is, yes, more costly. You're going to be spending tokens like all throughout, right? The thoughts that are being produced is a response of coming from an LLM. And yes, it will for sure be a lot more, it'll just take a longer time to run and execute. So I would at least consider that before you deploy it or put it inside your interactive copilots, especially if you need something that has like very quick responses. But this planner is still very powerful because again, the way that other planners have operated is like, okay, given your ask, I'm just going to return like one function. Like that, I believe that's the action planner. Action planner is going to return one function to call, one skill to call. And in this case, right, it is again more autonomous in nature to be able to try to complete something or keep going until completion. So.
Yeah. Isn't it true that each step, each thought, it could be a LLM call, but it could also be a native function or maybe a memory recall as well. It's not, which would have some slightly different surface area for performance.
Yeah. I don't know if that's something that you can swap out or configure, but I think that's a good point. Like thoughts could just be like I'm thinking, and you don't need to have the LLM to produce that. You can just manually code that yourself. But yes, good question. Okay, so we have another question from YouTube, actually. So Prasad asks, can we build a deterministic planner using embeddings where we will build a store of prompt plan embedding? And when a new prompt is given, then that prompt will be searched against that embeddings DB and get closest plan. So Abby responds saying, you can use embeddings to create better scope plans, but anything created by a generative AI model is effectively non-deterministic. Setting the model's temperature to 0 is as close to deterministic as you can get. But even then, unless you're using a static prompt, results can be unexpected. And then look at this link for an example using embeddings to scope sequential planner. Yeah, so this one in particular, it's this memory sample async. So this came up in Discord, I believe, even today, just asking the question of, like, yeah, if I'm in an environment where I have many skills and I need to, and there are just too many to fit inside the prompt window, even for planner. Like, how could I use maybe embeddings to only select the most relevant ones? So you can do that. We have this example here that you can see and play around with. But the idea is that, yeah, you could do a first call with the embedding model to fetch only the most relevant skills. So you would embed each of these skills individually, and that is based off the ask that's given. And yeah, and then from there you can import those to the kernel, and that will hopefully be, at least instead of doing everything, right, it's going to be a subset of your available skills. So, but this is a challenging problem, I will for sure say, because yeah, like you're going to be in an environment if more plugins get created. Like, challenge with ChatGPT today is that I believe you have to be very explicit in saying like, hey, enable this plugin, right? It's in the ideal scenario, it's like the AI should be able to figure out, oh, you want to use the Expedia plugin, you want to use DoorDash, you want to use whatever, and without you having to explicitly call it, enable it. So open-ended problem. Some solutions here in terms of a deterministic planner. I think this is interesting, and this kind of may go into this idea of caching that has come up a few times on GitHub and all that. I personally am a huge fan of wanting to see more caching happen, especially if the ask is the same. Maybe you have different users asking the same thing. So why spend all your tokens to create a new plan, create a response to that plan, all that stuff. So yes, I am 100% for this idea. If people want to see this, definitely find an issue on GitHub, if not already, or author one. Let's upvote it to make sure we get something there. And if people have implementations or ideas on how to solve this, please share that out too. Casey, I see you nodding your head. Any commentary you want to add to that?
No, yeah, I was just I'm in agreement. Listening to this question, it sounded more like plan caching than really recreating a plan deterministically. So I totally agree with your kind of your outcome there, or what you're thinking about it. And I think that's a great idea. I'm super excited for that. I've been thinking about how to implement it here and there. So I might jump on that, at least on the Python side. I'm not the C# guy, just like you, but Python, I'm there.
Let's do it. Okay. Oh, we have 10 minutes left, but we should be able to get through. So Sebastian has another question. In C#, is a kernel object intended to be used as a singleton, or rather transient? When integrating SK in the backend API for a web app, we would need to store chat history and agent state / history agents in some sort of a distributed cache to be able to scale out the API. How would that work with the kernel? I.e., how would a specific kernel know which memory to use for the current user session? So Harleen says to check the Copilot chat implementation. Tao or Chris or anyone else, be able to add more color there?
I think that's okay. Thank you. The Copilot, I will check the Copilot check thing and then see from there.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think the kernel handles all the LLM related logic, so it doesn't handle the like the history, like agent states and those kind of things. Those are external to the kernel.
Yeah.
So if you look at the Copilot chat,
I mean, Tao's more familiar with Copilot chat than me, but like if all the memories are stored in a dedicated container, then they wouldn't be mixed with other users. I don't know if that's how we do it. Tao might know.
yeah. So the kernel doesn't maintain any states. So for even inside Copilot chat, every single request we send to the backend will initialize a brand new kernel.
If I may add something, I was looking into this from a dependency injection, and it was a Blazor app perspective, and I remember clearly reading that the kernel can be transient and is supposed to be very fast. This is what I read, and I was going off of that.
Yeah, so this is related actually to this question. Yes. Okay. So Garrett asks, the RAG chat sample example. The kernel is being instantiated and registered in programs.cs. For my Blazor WASM web app, I'm instantiating a new kernel at each API endpoint. What are the cost benefits to each way and what is recommended? So our recommendation and our statement is that the semantic kernel should be very lightweight, very easy to spin up, tear down. And yes, as Tao mentioned, you probably don't want to use it to maintain state and all that. It's meant to be stateless. So in this case, like we've had this discussion in previous office hours around like, oh, should I have a long running kernel? And does it make sense to do that? You can. It's just I think our recommendation is to just use it or spin up an instance as needed, and then tear it down when you're done. So. Yes, good questions, good discussions, and yeah, hopefully, we'd love to see the emerging patterns from you all, how you all are doing it. But yeah, Garrett, hopefully that answers your question. All right, so this is our last question submitted. So Derek, he asks, do you have any examples of how to utilize embeddings with other connectors? I generate embeddings using generate embeddings async, but I'm unsure of how to effectively incorporate these embeddings with skills, functions, inline functions, and the planner. Helpful to see some practical examples or guidance in this regard. So I'm wondering about this first piece about embeddings with other connectors. So for those who don't know, because I just know this more intimately, I will share on the Python side, right? The way you would use embeddings is, right? You would attach a memory store to the kernel and add a text embedding generation service. In this case, just embedding or from OpenAI Ada model, and then you would, embed the whatever you want to into the memory store. And then when you actually want to retrieve it, at least for now, we expose this inside. We have a text memory skill. This is a core skill, and that shows or exposes a recall native function. And if you're writing a prompt, then you would use recall, and then whatever factor or string or query that you want to run that recall against. So that's how I would first comment on that. Can you use it with other connectors? I don't know actually if how text memory. I'm pretty sure it's a native skill, so you should be able to run this inside your own like connectors, native functions, or plugins. This is just showing how you can run it inside a semantic function. Yeah, so inline function is planner. Yeah, so I think my answer would be use the text memory skill to make use of the embeddings. Yeah.
Hey, Alex.
Okay. Yes.
I do have one other question, if we've got time.
Yeah, so we have 4 minutes. Go for it.
Awesome. I was just wondering if there's a possibility of the Python side getting a nightly release, because I've been seeing .NET's been getting a nightly release, and it'd be awesome to get like newly merged stuff quickly out.
Yes, that's a great point. Yeah, if .NET has it, then there's no reason Python shouldn't. Yeah, I'll pass it off to the team. We have stand up later today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, last 3 minutes. Anyone wants to? Oh, actually, no. I have things to share. So one thing is, we are obviously looking to grow the community, and part of that is knowing who you are, right? Who the people are, where they're located, and because we want to do things like more like in-person events or hackathons, things like that. And I am going to be sending out a form in a bit. So this is just rough draft, just in progress. But yeah, we would love to know like where you're coming from, and also just like what you would like to see, especially just from the community side. You know, these office hours are great, but we want to do more. We want to grow alongside with you all, and we do have several things coming in the pipeline. We have several talks that are happening for the VS Code, or so we have some events at VS Live. If you all know about this, it's a developer conference. There's Redmond. I'm gonna actually be speaking in San Diego in August. So if you're able to make that, that'll be cool. Yeah, other events like that. And I guess one more shout out is if anyone's in SF, I am going to be at the AI conference. Is it this one? Shoot. Anyway, I'll post the link later. But yes, I will be there speaking. So all that's to say is that we want to, engage with you all and find ways to grow the community. So if you have ideas, if you have events even or things that you want to do together, just let us know. And in terms of, yes, we want it to be global, not just, US. So yes, so in terms of some part of our team is based in Dublin, Ireland, and yeah, we can see what sort of things we do, and we also obviously have the Microsoft field as well, the cloud solution architects and all that to host things. So yes, well with that, thank you all for coming to office hours again. Hope you all had have a good rest of the week, and see you all on Discord and GitHub. All right, take care.